The crystal chandeliers cast golden reflections across the marble floors of Le Lumiere, the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan. Emily Carter's hands trembled slightly as she balanced the tray of champagne flutes, her black hair tied back in a neat bun, her worn shoes clicking softly against the expensive flooring. She'd been working double shifts for 3 months straight, barely making rent in her cramped studio apartment in Queens. The tips here were good, exceptional even, but never quite enough to cover the mountain of medical bills that still arrived in her mailbox like clockwork. Cruel reminders of everything she'd lost, but tonight felt different. Tonight, something in the air made her heart race with an inexplicable anticipation. Table 12. The reserved section in the far corner, where golden sconces cast warm light over cream-colored leather chairs, and a table set with china so delicate it looked like it might shatter if you breathed on it too hard. The one everyone whispered about in hushed, reverent tones. Ryan Westbrook had arrived. The 33-year-old tech billionaire moved through the restaurant like he owned it, which, Emily suddenly remembered with a jolt, he actually did. His tailored navy suit probably cost more than her entire year's salary. His watch caught the light, flashing with the kind of understated elegance that only extreme wealth could buy. Dark hair, sharp jawline, eyes that seemed to calculate the value of everything they landed on. But it wasn't his wealth that made Emily's breath catch as she approached. It wasn't the way other servers practically bowed as he passed. It was the woman beside him, an elegant lady in her 60s, wearing a pearl necklace that glowed softly against her pale blue dress, moving with graceful uncertainty as Ryan gently guided her by the elbow. Her silver hair was styled in soft waves, and her face held the kind of beauty that age only enhanced. His mother, Margaret Westbrook. Emily had heard the other servers mention her before, the reclusive matriarch who rarely made public appearances, who Ryan protected fiercely from the media's prying eyes. Emily took a deep breath, straightened her black vest, and approached their table with her most professional smile fixed firmly in place. "Good evening, Mr. Westbrook. Welcome to Le Lumiere. My name is Emily, and I'll be taking care of you this evening." Ryan barely glanced up, already scrolling through his phone with the distracted air of someone whose mind was simultaneously in 3 different time zones. "Water, still no ice. And we'll need menus." His mother sat quietly across from him, her intelligent brown eyes scanning the ornate golden walls with wonder, taking in every detail of the restaurant's opulent decor, the hand-painted murals, the cascading floral arrangements, the soft piano music drifting from the corner. Emily noticed something immediately, the kind of details her years with Daniel had trained her to spot instantly. The way Margaret's gaze followed people's lips when they spoke, the slight delay before she responded to her son's touch, the hearing aids so discreet they were almost invisible tucked behind her ears. "And for you, ma'am?" Emily asked gently, positioning herself directly in Margaret's line of sight, making sure her face was fully visible in the warm light. Before Margaret could respond, Ryan cut in without looking up from his screen. "She'll have the same. Just bring 2 waters and the menus. We're in a bit of a hurry." Something flickered in Margaret's eyes. Disappointment? Resignation? That particular shade of invisible that Emily had seen in her brother's face 1,000 times. The look of someone used to being spoken for, decided for, erased in conversations happening right in front of them. Emily's heart clenched. Her hands moved before her brain could stop them. Before professionalism and fear of losing this job could override instinct and memory, and the muscle memory of 17 years. Her fingers formed shapes in the air, fluid, practiced, purposeful, filled with the kind of warmth that only genuine communication could carry. "What would you like to drink, ma'am?" she signed, her movements clear and unhurried. Margaret's water glass nearly slipped from her fingers, her hand jerking in shock. Her eyes went wide, filling instantly with tears that caught the golden light. Around them, Emily felt the shift. Other diners had stopped eating mid-bite. The sommelier froze mid-pour at the next table. The soft clinking of silverware ceased. Even Ryan's phone clattered onto the table as he stared at Emily in absolute shock. His mouth opening but no words coming out. The poor waitress, with the worn shoes and the tired eyes, had just signed to a Billionaire's, deaf mother in perfect American Sign Language, and what happened next would change all three of their lives forever. The silence in La Lumiere stretched like pulled taffy, thick and uncomfortable. Ryan Westbrook sat frozen, his jaw slightly open, watching Emily's hands move with the kind of practiced fluency that only came from years, no, a lifetime, of use. This wasn't someone who'd taken a semester of ASL in college. This was real. This was native. Margaret's hands shot up immediately, signing back with an enthusiasm that made her pearl necklace dance. You know ASL? You really, truly know it? Yes, ma'am, Emily signed, her professional composure cracking into a genuine smile. I'm fluent. My younger brother Daniel was deaf. I've been signing since I was 7 years old. 17 years? Margaret's hands moved expressively. I can't remember the last time a stranger signed to me without being asked. Without that awkward moment where everyone realizes and doesn't know what to do. The restaurant's ambient noise slowly resumed, but several nearby tables continued watching. The head waiter, Bernard, stood near the kitchen entrance, his expression caught between fascination and concern. Emily was breaking protocol. She was supposed to take orders and disappear, not have full conversations with the guests, especially not the owner's mother. But Emily couldn't stop. Something in Margaret's expression, that mix of surprise and desperate gratitude, pulled at memories she'd been trying to bury for 8 months. Memories of Daniel's face lighting up when someone unexpected signed to him. That look of finally being seen as a person first, not a disability. What can I get you to drink? Emily signed again, her movements smooth and natural. Margaret's response came quickly, joyfully. Hot tea, please. Earl Grey, if you have it. With honey, not sugar. And she paused, glancing at her son with an expression that was equal parts love and exasperation. Thank you for asking me directly. You have no idea how rare that is. Ryan finally found his voice. Wait, stop. His tone carried the commanding edge of someone used to controlling every conversation. How did you learn sign language? Emily turned to him, suddenly aware she was still just a waitress and he was still a billionaire. I taught myself at first, sir. From library books and YouTube videos when I was 7. My brother was born deaf. Our parents worked 3 jobs between them, so I became Daniel's primary companion. His interpreter, his voice when he needed one, was... Margaret signed the question before Ryan could speak, her expression softening with understanding. Emily's smile faltered. This was the part she never talked about. The wound still too fresh, too raw. Her hands moved slowly now, heavy with grief. He passed away 8 months ago. Complications from pneumonia. He was only 22 years old. Margaret's hand flew to her heart, her eyes filling with tears. Around them, the golden light seemed to dim slightly, as if the restaurant itself felt the weight of that loss. I'm so deeply sorry, Margaret signed, then reached across the table, breaking every rule of fine dining etiquette to clasp Emily's hand in both of hers. Her touch was warm, maternal, achingly familiar in a way that made Emily's throat tighten. No sister should lose her brother so young. Ryan shifted uncomfortably, clearly out of his depth. Mom, let her do her job. We can't just, people are staring. Margaret's other hand shot up, signing something sharp and quick toward her son. Emily didn't need to catch every sign to understand. Be quiet, Ryan, this matters. Ryan leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his dark hair, a gesture Emily recognized as frustration barely held in check. I don't understand. How is this even happening right now? His voice dropped lower, meant only for their table, but the quiet intensity made it carry. Do you have any idea how many interpreters I've hired over the years? Professional interpreters with certifications and decades of experience. And my mother never... He stopped, looking at Margaret, whose attention remained fixed on Emily. She never looks at them the way she's looking at you. Margaret's hands moved gently, correcting her son without words. They're interpreters, Ryan. They do their job. But this young woman, she turned back to Emily, you sign like family. Like someone who understands that it's not just about the words. It's about being heard. Emily felt tears threatening. She blinked them back quickly, aware that Bernard was still watching, that she'd already spent far too long at this table. I should get your drinks. Earl Grey with honey for you, ma'am, and still water for Mr. Westbrook. Wait, Margaret signed, her movements urgent. Please, just one more moment. Tell me about Daniel. What was he like? The question hit Emily like a physical force. Nobody asked about Daniel anymore. Her co-workers didn't know how to bring him up. Her parents could barely speak his name without breaking down. Her few friends had offered condolences and then moved on, uncomfortable with grief that lasted longer than a respectable few weeks. But here was this elegant woman in pearls, a stranger asking about her brother like he mattered, like his life deserved to be remembered. Emily's hands began moving before she could stop them. He was brilliant, funny. He wanted to be a teacher for deaf children. He used to say that he wanted to be the person he needed when he was young, someone who understood what it felt like to live in a world that wasn't built for you. Her signing grew more animated as memories flooded back. He loved terrible horror movies and could quote every line from The Shining in sign language. He made the best chocolate chip cookies I've ever tasted. He had this smile that could light up a room, and he never let his deafness define him. He was everything good in my life. Margaret was crying openly now, and Emily realized with shock that she was too. Tears streaming down her face in the middle of the most exclusive restaurant in Manhattan, in front of a billionaire and his mother, completely unprofessional and utterly unable to stop. He sounds wonderful, Margaret signed. The world lost someone special. The world lost someone who could have changed it, Emily signed back, her throat tight. And I lost my best friend. Ryan sat motionless, watching this exchange with an expression Emily couldn't quite read. His phone lay forgotten on the table. For a man who supposedly had the attention span of a goldfish in meetings, she'd heard the other servers gossip. He seemed utterly transfixed. Finally he spoke, his voice softer than before. Emily, it is Emily, right? She nodded, quickly wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. How long have you been working here? 3 months, sir. And before that? I was a teaching assistant at an elementary school. But the pay wasn't enough to cover... She stopped, shook her head. I needed something with better tips. Ryan's eyes narrowed slightly, and Emily couldn't tell if she'd said something wrong. Had she offended him? Made herself sound desperate? She was desperate. But billionaires didn't want to hear about that. Margaret's hands caught her attention. You were a teacher? For young children? Assistant teacher. I worked with kindergartners. I loved it. Why did you leave? The question was simple, but the answer was a wound Emily hadn't let herself examine too closely. After Daniel died, there were medical bills, hospital bills, the funeral costs. My parents took out loans they can't afford, and Her hands faltered. I couldn't stay in a job I loved when my family was drowning in debt because of me. Because of you? Margaret's expression shifted to confusion. Emily's hands trembled. I was his medical proxy. I made the decisions in those final days. The experimental treatments we tried, the extended hospital stay, everything that didn't work but cost everything we had. It's my fault we're buried under all that debt. Oh, sweetheart, no, Margaret signed. And the endearment, so casual and so motherly, nearly broke Emily completely. Ryan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the marble floor. Bernard, he called out, his commanding tone back in full force. Cover table 12. Emily won't be taking any more tables tonight. Emily's stomach dropped. This was it. She'd overstepped, cried in front of guests, spent 20 minutes at one table ignoring all her other responsibilities. She was fired. 3 months of double shifts and aching feet and swallowed pride. All gone because she couldn't keep her emotions in check. Mr. Westbrook. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to... Sit down, he said. But his tone wasn't angry. It was something else. Something she couldn't identify. Sir, I can't. I have other tables. Not anymore. Bernard's handling them. Sit. Emily glanced at Margaret, who was watching her son with an expression of surprised approval. Slowly, carefully, Emily sank into the empty chair at their table, feeling the expensive leather beneath her, and knowing this was probably the last time she'd ever be in La Lumiere. Ryan sat back down, his business mode expression firmly in place. How much? Excuse me? The medical debt. How much is it? Emily's face flushed hot. I can't, that's not why I told you. I know that, Ryan said, and there was something almost gentle in his tone. But I'm asking anyway. How much? The number sat in Emily's throat like a stone, the number that kept her awake at night, that made her skip meals to save money, that haunted every quiet moment. $247,000. Ryan didn't even blink. He pulled out his phone, fingers moving across the screen with practiced efficiency. What's your full name? Emily Rose Carter. More typing. Bank? Mr. Westbrook, please, you don't have to. Bank? Emily. Chase, but really I wasn't asking for. I know you weren't. That's why I'm offering. He looked up from his phone, and for the first time, Emily saw something human in those calculating eyes. My mother has been deaf since birth. Genetic condition. I've spent 33 years watching people treat her like she's invisible. Like she's less than. Like her deafness is something embarrassing that needs to be worked around rather than accommodated. His jaw tightened. You treated her like a person. Like someone worth talking to directly. Do you know how rare that is? Margaret was signing something to Ryan, her movements quick and emphatic, but he shook his head. No, Mom, this is my decision. He turned back to Emily. You said you wanted to be a teacher. That you loved working with kids. I did. I do. What if you could go back to that? What if the debt wasn't hanging over your head anymore? Emily felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. I don't understand what you're asking. Ryan leaned forward. I'm asking if you'd consider doing something for me, for us, in exchange for me clearing your debt. There it was. The catch. The thing that made sense of this surreal conversation. What kind of something? My mother needs a companion, not an interpreter. She has those for business meetings and formal events. She needs someone who treats her like you just did. Someone who understands deaf culture because they've lived it. Someone who can be her friend, not just her employee. Margaret's hands flew up in protest, signing rapidly to her son. Emily caught fragments. I don't need a babysitter, and I'm perfectly capable. It's not about capability. Mom, Ryan said aloud, then switched to signing. His movements much less fluid than Emily's, but still competent. It's about companionship. About having someone around who actually gets it. He looked back at Emily. 3 days a week. You'd spend time with my mother. Lunch, shopping, museum visits, whatever she wants to do. You'd be paid a regular salary on top of the debt being cleared. You could go back to teaching if you want or not. Your choice, Emily's mind raced. This is insane. You don't even know me. I could be. Anyone who signs to a stranger the way you signed to my mother isn't a bad person, Ryan said simply. Anyone who gave up a career they loved to help their family isn't someone I'm worried about. Emily looked at Margaret, whose expression had softened from protest to something more complex. Hope mixed with concern, mixed with a loneliness Emily recognized all too well. It was the same expression Daniel used to get when their parents were too busy to attend his school events, when the world felt too big and too isolating. Ma'am, Emily signed directly to Margaret. What do you think about this? It's your life, your decision. Margaret's eyes widened slightly as if surprised to be consulted. She glanced at Ryan, then back to Emily, her hands moving slowly, thoughtfully. I think my son means well, but he tends to solve problems by throwing money at them. I'm sitting right here, Mom, Ryan said dryly. Margaret continued signing, a small smile on her lips. But I also think, and I haven't told him this, that I've been lonely. Very lonely. The interpreters are professional, polite. They do their jobs perfectly, but they don't talk to me. They translate for others to talk to me. There's a difference. Emily understood that difference intimately. She'd seen it in every interaction Daniel had with well-meaning strangers who addressed their questions to her instead of to him, as if his deafness meant he couldn't think for himself. I've been alone since my husband died 6 years ago, Margaret signed, and Emily saw tears threatening again. Ryan visits when he can, but he's building an empire. I have a beautiful home, all the resources I could ever need, and I spend most of my days alone with my books and my garden. I tell myself I'm fine, but her hands faltered. I'm not always fine. The honesty in those words hit Emily squarely in the chest. Here was a woman who had everything money could buy and nothing that actually mattered. Here was a woman who understood exactly what Emily had lost when Daniel died. Not just a brother, but a companion who understood her on a level no one else could. If you did this, Margaret continued, it wouldn't be charity. It would be, She paused, searching for the right signs. It would be friendship. Real friendship. And I would treasure that more than my son's money ever could. Emily felt something shift inside her chest. The weight she'd been carrying for 8 months, the guilt, the grief, the crushing responsibility, didn't disappear, but it felt somehow lighter, shared. She turned to Ryan, who'd been watching this entire exchange with an unreadable expression. "You're serious about this? About all of it?" "I don't joke about business arrangements," he said. "And I definitely don't joke about my mother's well-being." "You'd sign a contract. Everything legal and above board. 3 days a week. Flexible scheduling around your teaching if you go back to it. $60,000 a year salary plus benefits. Medical, dental, everything. And the debt cleared within 48 hours of you signing. $60,000. The number echoed in Emily's head. That was more than she'd made in 2 years as a teaching assistant. That was enough to help her parents. To rebuild the savings she'd drained, to maybe, finally, breathe. "I need to think about it," Emily heard herself say, though every practical bone in her body was screaming at her to say yes immediately. "Of course," Ryan said, pulling a business card from his wallet. "Take 24 hours. Call my personal number when you decide." Bernard appeared at the table, his expression carefully neutral but his eyes sharp. "Mr. Westbrook, your appetizers are ready. Shall I have them brought out?" "Yes, thank you, Bernard." Ryan looked at Emily. "You should get back to work. We've kept you long enough?" Emily stood on shaky legs, taking the business card with trembling fingers. The thick cardstock felt expensive, embossed with elegant lettering. "Ryan Westbrook, CEO, Westbrook Technologies." Margaret reached out, catching Emily's hand one more time. "Thank you," she signed with her free hand. "For seeing me. For remembering Daniel through kindness to a stranger. You're a beautiful person, Emily Carter." Emily couldn't speak, couldn't sign, could only nod and blink back tears as she walked away from table 12, feeling the weight of every eye in the restaurant following her. In the kitchen, she leaned against the cold stainless steel counter, the business card clutched in her hand, her heart racing so fast she thought it might burst through her chest. "What the hell just happened out there?" whispered Jessica, another waitress, her eyes wide. "Did you just make a billionaire's mother cry? Are you fired? Please tell me you're not fired, because that was either the most beautiful thing I've ever seen or the most career-ending." Emily looked down at the card, at the phone number written in neat, precise digits, at the possibility of a life she'd stopped letting herself imagine. "I think," she said slowly, "I think my life just changed." Emily didn't sleep that night. She sat in her cramped studio apartment, the business card on her coffee table, staring at it like it might disappear if she looked away. The sirens outside her window, usually so familiar she barely noticed them, seemed louder tonight. The couple arguing in the apartment above shook the ceiling. Her reality felt suddenly too small, too suffocating, pressed up against the possibility Ryan Westbrook had offered her. $247,000. Gone. Just like that. 3 days a week with Margaret. $60,000 a year. Benefits. The chance to go back to teaching, to work with children again, to do what she actually loved instead of balancing plates and forcing smiles at people who didn't see her. She picked up her phone at 2 a.m., put it down. Picked it up again at 3:15, put it down. At 4:30, she finally opened her photos and scrolled to the album she both cherished and avoided. Daniel's album. There he was at his high school graduation, signing, "I did it," with the biggest smile on his face. There he was at Christmas 2 years ago, wearing the ridiculous reindeer sweater she'd bought him, throwing a snowball at the camera. There he was in the hospital bed, thin and pale, but still signing, "I love you," to her with weak hands. What should I do? She whispered to his photo, as if he could somehow answer. Is this okay? Am I allowed to be happy after losing you? Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Can't sleep either. Thinking about you, sweetheart. How was your shift? Emily stared at the message. Her mother, who worked the night shift cleaning offices, who was probably on her 15-minute break right now, exhausted and worried about her daughter, and probably about the bills that never stopped coming. She made the decision. At 7 a.m., Emily called the number on Ryan Westbrook's business card. He answered on the second ring, sounding impossibly alert for so early in the morning. Emily, I was hoping you'd call. I'll do it, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. I'll take the position, but I have conditions. A pause. Then, with what sounded almost like amusement, I'm listening. I want to go back to teaching. Part-time at first, maybe, but that's non-negotiable. Working with your mother can't be my whole identity. I need something that's mine. Agreed. What else? I want to meet with Margaret again before signing anything. Just the two of us. No lawyers, no contracts, no you. I need to make sure this is what she really wants, not just what you think she needs. Another pause, longer this time. That's fair. Anything else? Emily took a deep breath. If I do this, I'm not doing it as an employee who pretends to be a friend. I'm doing it as a friend who happens to be paid. There's a difference. I won't fake anything with her. If we don't genuinely connect, if this feels forced or fake, I'm out. She deserves real friendship, not a performance. You know, Ryan said quietly, you're the first person in a long time who's negotiated with me from a position of integrity instead of leverage. My mother is going to love you. Is that a yes to my conditions? It's a yes. I'll have my assistant set up lunch with my mother for tomorrow. Just you two, somewhere quiet where you can talk. Thank you. Emily? His voice shifted, became more serious. What you said in the restaurant about the medical debt being your fault, you know that's not true, right? You were trying to save your brother's life. There's no shame in that, no guilt to carry. The unexpected kindness in his words nearly broke her. I'm working on believing that. Work faster. The world has enough guilt. It doesn't need yours too. The restaurant Ryan's assistant had chosen was nothing like Le Lumiere. It was a small cafe in Brooklyn, cozy and unpretentious, with mismatched chairs and local art on the walls. Emily arrived 15 minutes early, her nerves making her palms sweat despite the cool October air. Margaret was already there, sitting by the window in a soft green cardigan, a cup of tea steaming in front of her. She looked different without the pearls and formal dress, more relaxed, more real. She smiled when she saw Emily and immediately began signing. I'm so glad you came. I was worried you'd change your mind. Emily slid into the chair across from her. I almost did. About 6 times last night. Why didn't you? The question was simple, but the answer was complicated. Emily's hands moved slowly, choosing her words carefully. Because when I was with you yesterday for the first time since Daniel died, I felt like I had a purpose again. Like maybe all those years of learning sign language, of living in his world, weren't just going to end with him. Margaret's eyes glistened. Tell me something. And please be honest. Are you doing this because you need the money, or because you actually want to spend time with an old woman? You're 64, not ancient, Emily signed with a small smile. But honestly, both. I do need the money. My family is drowning in debt, and I can't watch my parents destroy themselves trying to fix something that was never their fault. But, she paused, making sure Margaret could see the sincerity in her eyes. I also spent yesterday evening missing you, missing our conversation. I haven't signed with anyone except in my dreams about Daniel for 8 months. You made me remember what it felt like to connect with someone through ASL. That's not something money can buy. Margaret reached across the table and took Emily's hand. Ryan thinks he's hiring you to keep me company, to be my companion. But what he doesn't understand is that I'm not the only lonely one here, am I? The observation hit so close to home that Emily felt tears threatening. No, you're not. Then let's make a deal, just between us, Margaret signed with her free hand. Let's not think of this as an employment arrangement. Let's think of it as 2 people who understand loss and loneliness deciding to face it together. Yes, my son is paying you. Yes, there will be paperwork. But between you and me, in the moments that matter, we're just 2 friends. Deal? Emily felt something in her chest crack open. Not breaking, but opening. Like a door she'd kept locked suddenly letting light in. Deal. They ordered lunch, soup, and sandwiches that cost less than the appetizers at Le Lumiere, and talked for 3 hours. Margaret told Emily about her childhood, about learning she was deaf at age 3, about meeting her husband Robert at a college mixer, where he'd been the only hearing person in the room who knew sign language, about losing him to cancer and feeling like she'd lost her voice all over again. Emily told Margaret about growing up as Daniel's sister, about the kids at school who'd mocked his signing, about teaching herself to be his fierce protector. about his dreams of changing the deaf education system, about holding his hand when he took his last breath and feeling like part of her soul left with him. "You carry him with you," Margaret signed. "In every movement of your hands. The way you sign with such emotion. That's not a burden, Emily. That's a gift. It doesn't always feel like a gift. Grief never does. But love does. And you loved him enough to make his language your language. You loved him enough to become fluent in his world. That love doesn't end just because he did." Emily wiped her eyes with a napkin, laughing wetly. "I'm supposed to be the one helping you, and here you are giving me therapy." Margaret grinned. "Who says we can't help each other? That's what friends do." By the time Emily left the cafe, her heart felt lighter than it had in months. She pulled out her phone and called Ryan's number. "I'm signing the contract," she told him. "Whatever your lawyers need, I'll do it. But I need you to know, your mother is incredible. You're lucky to have her." There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Ryan spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "I know, I just forget sometimes. Thank you for reminding me." 3 weeks later, Emily walked into PS 147 Elementary School in Queens, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and terror. The principal, Mrs. Davidson, a warm woman in her 50s with kind eyes, greeted her at the entrance. "Emily Carter, we've missed you around here. The kids have been asking about you constantly." Emily smiled, feeling the familiar comfort of the school's colorful hallways, the children's artwork covering every available wall space. "I've missed them too. More than I realized. Your application said you're only available 3 days a week now?" "Yes, ma'am. I've taken on another position, but teaching it's what I love. It's where I need to be." Mrs. Davidson studied her for a moment. "You look different. Lighter somehow." Emily thought about the past 3 weeks, the afternoons with Margaret at art galleries, the mornings at botanical gardens, the long conversations over coffee about everything and nothing, the way her bank account no longer made her stomach clench with anxiety, the way her parents had cried when she told them the medical debt was paid. "I'm healing," Emily said simply. "Finally. Well, we're glad to have you back. Your classroom is ready. Same group of kindergartners, though they're a bit bigger now than when you left." Emily walked into her classroom and was immediately mobbed by tiny humans throwing their arms around her waist. "Miss Emily? Miss Emily, you came back. I promised I would, didn't I?" she said, kneeling down to their level, accepting their enthusiastic hugs. A small boy with red hair, Tommy, tugged on her sleeve. "Miss Emily, can you teach us more of that hand-talking? The stuff you showed us before?" Emily's throat tightened. Before Daniel died, she'd been teaching her students basic sign language. Simple phrases, the alphabet, common words. She'd stopped after his death, unable to face the memories. "You want to learn more sign language?" "Yes." The chorus was unanimous and deafening. "Why?" Emily asked softly. A little girl named Sophie raised her hand. "Because it's beautiful. And because you said it helps people who can't hear. I want to help people." Emily felt tears prick her eyes. Out of the mouths of babes. "Okay, yes, I'll teach you more." That afternoon, as Emily taught 20 kindergartners how to sign friendship and kindness, her phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. "How was your first day back?" Emily snapped a photo of her students practicing their signs and sent it. "Perfect. Absolutely perfect." Margaret's response came quickly. "I'm proud of you. Coffee tomorrow? I found a new gallery I want to show you. Wouldn't miss it for the world." That evening, as Emily walked home through the darkening streets of Queens, she stopped by the small cemetery where Daniel was buried. She hadn't visited since the funeral, unable to face the finality of his grave. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like maybe she could. She knelt in front of his headstone, her fingers tracing his name. "Hey, little brother. I know I haven't been here. I'm sorry for that. I was so angry at the world for taking you. Angry at myself for not saving you. But I met someone, actually 2 someones, and they're helping me remember that you wouldn't want me to stop living just because you did." The wind picked up, rustling the trees around her, and Emily could almost hear Daniel's voice. "Obviously, I don't want that, dummy. I want you to be happy. I'm trying," she whispered. "I'm teaching again. Your signs. Your language. I'm keeping it alive through these kids. And I met this woman, Margaret. She's deaf like you were, and she gets it, Danny. She understands what it's like. She's helping me heal. Emily pulled out her phone and showed Daniel's headstone the photo of her students signing. See, they're learning because of you. Your dream of changing deaf education. Maybe I can't do it the way you would have, but I can do it my way. Through these kids, through Margaret, through remembering that sign language isn't just communication. It's connection. It's love made visible. She stood wiping her eyes and signed one final message to her brother. I love you. I miss you. And I'm going to make you proud. Watch me. As Emily walked away from the cemetery, she felt something she hadn't felt in 8 months. Hope. Real, genuine, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, she could build a life worth living again. A life Daniel would be proud of. A life that honored his memory not through grief, but through the connection she made and the love she shared. 6 months passed like pages turning in a book Emily had forgotten she was allowed to read. Winter melted into spring, and with it, Emily's life transformed in ways she couldn't have imagined that night at La Lumiere. Her mornings belonged to Piece 147, where her kindergarten class had become a small army of enthusiastic signers. They practiced during circle time, signed their snack requests, and even performed a short play in ASL for the school's spring showcase. Parents had started asking if she'd offer sign language classes for families, wanting to learn alongside their children. Her afternoons belonged to Margaret. They'd settled into a comfortable rhythm. Tuesdays they explored museums, Wednesdays they had lunch at small cafes across the city, and Fridays were reserved for what Margaret called adventure days. Stocks. Friday they'd taken a pottery class and created lopsided bowls they both pretended were artistic masterpieces. But it was the unscheduled moments Emily treasured most. The Sunday Margaret called just to share a joke. The Wednesday Margaret showed up at Emily's school to watch the kids' ASL performance, tears streaming down her face. The Saturday they'd stayed up until 2 a.m. in Margaret's elegant townhouse, signing stories about their lives by lamplight, laughing until their hands hurt. You've made me feel young again, Margaret had signed that night. Like the world is full of possibilities instead of just comfortable routines. Emily was sitting in her apartment, a new apartment now with actual separate rooms and windows that didn't face a brick wall, when her phone rang. Ryan's name flashed on the screen. He rarely called her directly. Most communication went through Margaret. Hello? Emily, I need a favor. His voice was tight, stressed in a way she'd never heard before. It's about my mother. Emily's heart dropped. Is she okay? Is she hurt? She's fine physically, but there's a gala tomorrow night. The annual Westbrook Foundation charity event. He paused, and she heard him take a breath. It's important. Donors, press, the whole thing. My mother usually skips it. She hates these events. Too many people, too much noise she can't participate in. Too many strangers who don't know how to interact with her. But this year, she told me she wants to go. That's wonderful, Emily said, confused about why he sounded so stressed. It would be, except my mother's regular interpreter just canceled. Family emergency. I've called every agency in the city and everyone's booked. This gala has been planned for a year, and his voice cracked slightly. I can't let her down. She's been so happy lately, Emily. Because of you. She's been more herself than I've seen her since my father died. I can't watch her retreat back into isolation because I failed to find an interpreter. Emily understood immediately. You want me to interpret for her at the gala. I know it's not in your job description. I know it's short notice. I'll pay you extra, whatever you need. Ryan, Emily interrupted gently. Stop. Of course I'll do it. What time should I be there? The relief in his voice was palpable. 7 p.m. At the plaza. Emily, thank you. You have no idea what this means. After hanging up, Emily stared at her closet with growing panic. A gala at the plaza. She owned exactly one dress nice enough for something like that. A simple black dress she'd worn to Daniel's funeral. The thought of wearing it made her stomach turn. She called the one person who might understand. Margaret, I have a problem. An hour later, Emily found herself in an exclusive boutique in Manhattan. Margaret beaming beside her as a saleswoman brought out dress after dress. "Ryan called you, didn't he?" Margaret signed, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "How did you—" "Because I specifically asked my regular interpreter to cancel. I told her I'd pay her anyway. I wanted you there tomorrow night, Emily. I wanted my friend beside me, not a professional stranger." Emily's mouth fell open. "You manipulated your own son?" "I prefer to think of it as strategic planning," Margaret signed with a completely unrepentant grin. "Now try on that blue dress. It'll match your eyes." The Plaza Hotel glittered like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors, and everywhere Emily looked, she saw elegance and wealth in forms she'd only ever seen in movies. Women in designer gowns, men in perfectly tailored tuxedos, champagne flowing like water. And there was Emily, in a midnight blue dress that Margaret had insisted on buying despite Emily's protests, feeling like an imposter at a ball where she didn't belong. "You look beautiful," Margaret signed as they entered together. "Stop fidgeting with your necklace. There are photographers everywhere, important people. What if I mess up? Then you mess up. You're human, not a machine. Besides," Margaret's eyes sparkled, "you're not here as my interpreter. You're here as my guest, my friend. The interpreting is just a bonus." Ryan appeared through the crowd, looking impossibly handsome in a black tuxedo. His eyes widened slightly when he saw Emily. "You clean up nice, Carter." "Don't sound so surprised," she shot back, then immediately worried she'd been too casual. But Ryan just laughed. "Come on, there are some people I want to introduce you to. Both of you." The next 2 hours passed in a blur. Emily interpreted conversations between Margaret and donors, signed jokes that made Margaret laugh loud enough to turn heads and gradually realize something surprising. She was good at this. Really good. Not just the technical skill of interpreting, but the ability to capture Margaret's personality, her humor, her intelligence in every translation. "Who is that woman with Margaret Westbrook?" she heard someone whisper behind her. "I've never seen Margaret so animated." "I heard she's a friend, not just an interpreter. Ryan Westbrook hired her personally." Emily caught Ryan's eye across the room. He was watching her and his mother with an expression she couldn't quite read, something between gratitude and wonder. Midway through the evening, a distinguished man in his 70s approached Margaret. Emily recognized him from the program, Thomas Bradford, one of the Foundation's largest donors. "Margaret, lovely to see you as always," he said, then completely ignored her and turned to Emily. "Could you tell Mrs. Westbrook that I think the Foundation is doing excellent work this year?" Emily felt her professional smile freeze. "Tell Mrs. Westbrook?" Margaret was standing right there, but before she could respond, Margaret's hand touched her arm. "Let me," Margaret signed. Then Margaret did something Emily had never seen her do. She spoke. Her voice was different, the voice of someone who'd been deaf since birth, uncertain in its modulation, but clear and deliberate. "Mr. Bradford," Margaret said aloud, making sure he could read her lips as well. "I am right here. If you have something to say to me, say it to me. Emily is my friend, not my translator service." The man's face went red. Around them, conversations stopped. Emily held her breath. Then Ryan was there, his hand on his mother's shoulder, his smile sharp as broken glass. "Mr. Bradford, I believe my mother just gave you a lesson in basic courtesy. I suggest you take it." Bradford sputtered an apology and retreated. Margaret was trembling slightly, but when she turned to Emily, she was grinning. "Did you see his face?" she signed, then laughed. A full, joyous sound that made heads turn for entirely different reasons. Ryan leaned in close to Emily. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for giving her the confidence to do that. She's never stood up for herself like that in public before." "I didn't do anything," Emily protested. "You did everything," Ryan said. "You treated her like a person who deserved to be heard." And she started believing it. As the gala continued, Emily watched Margaret work the room, not hiding in corners as Ryan had described her doing in the past, but engaging with guests, using her voice when she chose to, signing when she preferred, commanding respect and attention in equal measure.